BEIT LAHIYA, Gaza Strip. The bombs had stopped falling on the Gaza Strip, so a crew from the Associated Press set out Wednesday morning to do a story on the people who picked them up. Two of the journalists, an Italian videographer and a local Palestinian helping him with arrangements and translation, were killed along with 4 members of Gaza's unexploded-ordnance squad as they attempted to defuse what officials described as an Israeli bomb. The blast occurred in a dirt soccer field in this northern Gaza town where the squad, part of the Hamas-run police force, has collected unexploded rockets, missiles, bombs dropped from Israeli aircraft and other potentially dangerous weapons from homes, streets, or wherever they landed. A spokesman for the Interior Ministry said the squad had retrieved more than 1,000 unexploded items since the battle between Israeli forces and Gaza's militants began July 8, many of them since a temporary ceasefire began at 12:01 a.m. Monday. Continue reading the main story. Related coverage. Rocket fire casts doubt on truce in Gaza. 13, 2014. Ahmad and Mahmoud el-Masri on the rubble of their family home in Gaza on Tuesday. A ceasefire was holding for a second day. Simone Kamili, 35, a video journalist based in Beirut, Lebanon, who started as an intern at the AP in 2005, was the first international journalist killed in the latest Gaza conflict. His interpreter, Ali Shada Abu Wafash, 36, helped train local journalists through the Doha Center for Media Freedom and worked regularly with visiting foreign correspondents. Mr. Kamili, who is survived by a longtime partner, Ilva Vandenberg, and their 3-year-old daughter, Noor, covered conflicts around the Middle East. He had been in Gaza during the last major Israeli military operation in 2012, when his footage of a bomb exploding on Sarala, a collection of historic buildings that housed government offices, was among the most widely used. Colleagues said he had chosen to return to Gaza last week, rather than go to Erbil, Iraq, because of a deep attachment to the place and its people. He loved storytelling, very inquisitive and always kind of deconstructing, trying to come up with the narrative, said Tanya Habjuka, an award-winning photojournalist and close friend in Jerusalem, where Mr. Kamili was based from 2006 until about 6 months ago. Always convinced that it was often in the most blatant stories there would be a tiny, human missed element that would bring it all into fresh light. Mr. Abu Wafash, the father of 2 young girls, was a computer engineer who quit his job at a health union in Gaza a few years ago to work with journalists as a local assistant mainly for Agence France Presse, and as an advocate for young Palestinians trying to succeed as freelancers. Friends said he had traveled to Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt and other places for workshops, played soccer with colleagues here in Gaza, and was well known for going to extremes to help others. When a colleague was injured covering a demonstration in 2010, he went with him all the way to Turkey and he stood beside him while he was receiving treatment, recalled one Gaza photographer, Ashraf Amra. Mona Moussa, a friend who was among dozens of women mourning with his wife and mother, said, whenever he hears someone's computer had a problem, he would come to the house and fix it. His Gaza City apartment was damaged during the fighting last month, but he still dedicated all his time to his work, said a cousin, Abdullah Abu Wafash, 26. Adel Hanna, the chief Associated Press photographer in Gaza, said the 2 men met the bomb disposal squad in BEIT LAHIYA around 10 a.m. Wednesday along with Hadel Moussa, 38, a photographer who was seriously wounded in the blast that happened about 45 minutes later. The men knew there were risks in defusing bombs and talked about danger every day, Mr. Hanna said. They went to do a story and that's it. An article about the bomb squad published last week in the National An English-language Middle East regional newspaper said it had 70 members, who generally do not wear protective gear as they respond to calls from concerned citizens about the ordnance found in their neighborhoods. The vast majority of the munitions are Israeli, the article said, but the squad has also dealt with tens of rockets that Hamas, the militant faction that dominates Gaza, or other groups launched toward Israel but that failed to make it out of the coastal territory. Ayad Bozum, the Interior Ministry spokesman, said the squad had some trouble Wednesday morning with an undetonated bomb dropped by an Israeli F-16 in a pile on the soccer field, which sits between a religious court and a food distribution center, across the street from police headquarters. So they called in Taser al-Hom, the head of the bomb disposal unit in North Gaza, who in turn called Hazem Abu Murad, chief of the entire squad. Both were killed instantly, along with the 2 journalists and another police expert. A 4th member of the bomb squad was critically wounded and died hours later. It's life and death, Mr. Abu Murad, who was 39 and had a degree in Islamic law, was quoted as saying to describe the work in the National article. One small tweak in the wrong direction, even a millimeter, and you're dead. Hundreds of men joined a funeral march down a main street for Mr. Abu Murad, carrying green Hamas flags and firing gunshots in the air, in a style not seen during the weeks of hostilities. Your army, called a leader over a loudspeaker, Al-Qassam, responded the crowd, referring to the armed wing of Hamas. Mr. Kamili was expected to be buried in Italy, where his father is the mayor of a small town in the Tuscany region. Ms. Habjuka, who described her friend as handsome, charming, unassuming, had recently spent 2 weeks on vacation in the town with Mr. Kamili and their families. The adults made a pact not to check email or the news so they could stay focused on their small children, she said, but first thing each morning, Mr. Kamili would slink off and read what was happening in Gaza, Ms. Habjuka said. He was always very quiet and thoughtful. He would smoke his cigarette and have his coffee, and say how many people had been killed.